I'm Jeff Ward, and the only agenda here is to make you think. You know what? Collectively, we should be embarrassed. I'm not sure we are, but we should be embarrassed. Again, at the presidential debate spectacle and how dumbed down politics in this country have become. But you know what? We live in a TikTok culture of performance art with little to zero depth, and we have an overall hatred of anything intellectual. So here we are. I want to get my chaotic political beliefs out of the way before people start flipping out at me because I know what's coming. By the way, I don't like the Kamala Harris capital gains tax plan. I think the Trump tariff strategy is economic disaster again. I don't think the government should be involved in marriage at all. I think the war on drugs is a colossal failure and we jail too many people. I think the two-party system is a dangerous duopoly. I think a flat tax is a pretty good idea. And I think the office of the president should be mostly about foreign policy and being the face of the American franchise. Very few people agree with me politically. Just want to get it out there. There was none of that in last night's presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Trump was a TikTok president, and he's a TikTok candidate in a TikTok culture. So that is how we judge a debate. It's not that new. The Trump appeal, if you go back in time, the Trump appeal has always been this. He is the middle finger to people his supporters don't like. And you know what? He plays that role perfectly. I've always said Trump is a prisoner of the audience. That is precisely what he has been for some time, and that is precisely what his supporters want him to be, that middle finger. So let's be clear. I think in the end, even though it's fun and interesting and pathetic to judge the performance art, the truth of the matter is the needle for the election is going to move very little no matter what happened in this debate. I mean, it didn't matter how idiotic it was, how smart it was. It wasn't at all. It didn't matter what happened. That needle is not going to move much because it can't move much. People have already made up their decisions. So the movement is tiny at best. And that is, there's no such thing as undecided. It's virtually non-existent anymore. The only option that I think is available to move the needle by either candidate going forward, from last night or before last night, but the only option available is to increase the hate of the other person enough to influence a few thousand, a few 100,000 suburban voters. That's the mission statement. That's the math in the end. I'll say it again. The only thing to move the needle is to generate more hate of the other candidate, enough so a few 100,000 suburban voters decide to vote. That's it. Elections now are only about hate. That's it. That's all they're about. Don't say and don't pretend it and don't lie and say it's about policy. It is not and hasn't been for several years. So it's only about hate, and that means voting against the other person. Famous Wardism is you don't vote in favor of something, you vote against someone, and we're there very much so. And that was true with or without Donald Trump, but it's certainly more true with Donald Trump. Nobody wins anymore. There is not even really an effort, as you saw last night. There's not really an effort to sell you on ideas or policies, something that, say, a Ronald Reagan or Bill Clinton was masterful. They would convince you what it is they're selling is going to be good for you. That's not true anymore. We don't have any of that stuff. I'm not even sure most people want that stuff anymore. So they would take, a Reagan and Clinton would take depth and nuance and then move voters their way. The key to winning now, and I think you know this, is to generate enough hate against your opponent. So this election, just like the last two, is really about Trump or not Trump. That's it. The debate was about him. Everything has been about him for several years. So debates are as performance art. That's not necessarily new. That's been true for a long, long time. So for the first time since Donald Trump, my opinion, for the first time since Donald Trump has been on the political stage, somebody figured out how to let Trump embarrass himself enough so a few thousand or 100,000 suburban white voters might say, I just can't vote for him. He's just too icky. Somebody finally had the discipline and the strategy to make that happen. And he did it. Oh, yeah, he did it. I judged last night's TikTok performance like this. Someone, Kamala Harris, not only understood what to do to make Donald Trump's head explode, but knew exactly how to do it and the pacing of doing it. For almost 10 years, when you think about the last 10 years, Trump has offered up pretty much a lounge act full of trash talk. And not one single candidate, not one, could match it nor handle it. I mean, he would destroy them. They couldn't match it until now, right? The streets are filled with Rick Perry, Jeb Bush, Lindsey Graham, Rafael Cruz, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. They were all blown away because they couldn't figure out how to back him down. They couldn't figure out how to just turn the whole thing around on him and let him make a fool of himself. They couldn't. The last debate was no match whatsoever. Whether Joe Biden was drooling on himself or not, he couldn't figure out, even if he wasn't drooling on himself, he would not have been able to figure out how to walk Trump into an embarrassing moment. They didn't know how to turn the debate into a TikTok clip for seventh graders. That's Trump. That's what you have to do to Trump. It's a TikTok clip for seventh graders. Candidate after candidate after candidate let Trump be the political version of Don Rickles and Andrew Dice Clay. And if you're confused by that, Google it. I said Don Rickles and Andrew Dice Clay. He's really good at it. That's what he knows. Nobody knew how to deal with it until now. Kamala Harris did what no other political stiff could do. She turned the debate into a dodgeball game and hit Trump in the face repeatedly. You ever play back when dodgeball was probably legal? You had those red balls, and you knew the kid with glasses you could probably hit the side of the head. That's what she did to him repeatedly. She provided a master class in letting Trump be an icky jackass. That's all anyone ever had to do. Remember, you don't vote in favor of something, you vote against someone. It was a master class in letting Trump be a jackass, an icky jackass. Does Trump think he was a jackass? Of course not. Do his followers? No. Most Republicans in office know he looked like a jackass, but they'll take the safe route and say, it's the moderators and blah, blah, blah. But she did it. She did what nobody else had the strategy and the patience to do. And by the way, I'm not saying this is a great skill. It was just a master class of turning the guy into the icky jackass that he is. And he took it. He took the bait in every opportunity. Will him being a full-on icky jackass cost him the election? It might. It might. It's still, the margin is thin, but it might. So to win, remember, you have to make a few 100,000 middle-aged to older white suburban voters find Trump ickier than usual. That was her mandate. And she pulled it off. Kamala Harris needed to make the debate about Trump looking like and sounding like a babbling, icky jackass. And it eventually happened. What didn't happen in any other debate since he's been in political office or running for office, it happened last night. She allowed him to act like a bigger fool than usual. Remember, it was just about him. Just keep serving it up and let him be an icky jackass. The strategic art of all of this, it was pretty fascinating just strategically. Again, we're in political no man's land. We are politically idiotic now. We have no nuance, no substance, no intellect. None of that stuff matters. Policy doesn't matter. But it was fascinating because Trump, I have to say this, and I was following for a little while, and I think a lot of people had the same feeling. He was fairly disciplined, other than looking like, his head was going to explode, but he was fairly disciplined for a while, but she kept patiently baiting him. I mean, it was pretty remarkable. I mean, if there's fishing analogies out there, you can use a lot of them because she was incredibly patient in laying that bait out consistently, doing the same thing, laughing at him. He is the American public, right? So he's going to react. He is the American public because the American public is TikTok. And that is exactly what was on display last night. So sooner or later, his head was going to explode. She had the patience and strategy to just keep dropping the bait. But for Trump, because there's not a strategic bone in his body, you can say what you want about discipline. I doubt that too. But he has no strategy at all. Virtually no discipline. Just reactions. That's what he is. In fact, that's one of the things that people kind of like about him is, right? He's just like the American public. We don't really think things through. We just flip out and react. And that's been the appeal of Trump from day one. So she had to know that if I just have the patience and keep strategically dropping the bait, keep laughing at his face, keep turning the entire debate into a 7th grade playground trash talking TikTok video, that sooner or later he would flip and become the icky jackass that would turn some votes. She was calm. She was methodical. And he tried to hang on, I think, as long as he could. Right? You could just see it in his face. He lasted longer than I thought, to be honest. But the laughing at him, which I think is kind of what did it, the laughing at him like he's some loser in those fail videos, right? Just laughing at him, not laughing with him, because he loves to tell jokes and he loves to be an entertainer. Remember, he's Don Rickles and Andrew Dice Clay. That's what he is. But she kept laughing at him like he's in one of those fail videos, and it was eating him alive. And then the dodgeball to the face was the crowd size comment. I mean, that was the one that your PE teacher kicked you out of the game when you hit the other kid from distance with glasses on and you hit him in the side of the head. That's what the crowd size comment was. The laughing at him, and then the crowd size comment. He couldn't take it anymore, could he? He just couldn't take it anymore. That dodgeball hit him right in the ear. So being a popular showman is what matters most to him, right? That's what matters most to him. That's all he knows. And she attacked that. That's what she called out. She didn't call out some policy. Stop it with that stuff. She didn't say that at all. She attacked what matters most to him, the entertainer. And for the first time in all of the debates, for the first time in practically any performance that he's had, he flipped. Yeah. He just did what was natural, what most Americans do. No discipline, no strategy, and he just flipped. He's a narcissist, so she hit him where it matters the most, and it was just eating away at him, and all he could do was that default thing. Laugh at him, crowd size. Kamala Harris masterfully walked Trump into, I'm going to say it, she walked him into the election's hawk to a moment.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I called it the hawk to a moment of all elections. Yes, immigrants are eating your pets. Right? It really is the political hawk to a moment. Trump and his supporters are fine with it. That's why I call it the hawk to a moment. See, because there are a lot of people going, yeah, what's the problem here? Yeah, they're eating the cats. So that's what's hawk to, because there's a little bit of nuance to this, because his supporters are fine with it. He's fine with it. He genuinely thinks he did pretty well because that's all he knows is being a reactionary. So just like a lot of people think the hawk to a moment was cool, many people probably even believe that the immigrants are eating your pets. By the way, it's not true. But, you know, if you think it's true, how do I say this politely? You're a hopeless human being if you think it's true. But just like the hawk to a girl gets plenty of clicks, so will this. It is the takeaway. Now, there's a lot of stuff building up, but this is the takeaway. The strategy was very clear. And the strategy was to get middle-aged, white suburban voters to say, he's unhinged, he's foolish, and he's just too icky. She played it perfectly. She played it perfectly. She played him perfectly. And in the end, you know what else? Unfortunately for all of us, all the thinkers that are out there, there's not many of us. But in the end, you know what? We should be embarrassed about it all. Just embarrassed.